Hi, my name is Chris, and I was only on the streets for 5 months.
Hi, I'm TJ, and I was on the streets for about 7 months.
Hi, I'm Loretta, and I was on the streets for a little over a year.
Hi, I'm Mandy, and I was on the streets on and off for over 10 years.
Hi, I'm Kimberly. I was on the streets for 3 years.
Hi, I'm Brandon, and I was on and off and on for about 5 years on the streets.
Yeah. So one of the things that we know, especially y'all, is that people's circumstance to get unsheltered are different and unique to every person. So the first questions that we're going to ask tonight, that I'm going to give you all the opportunity to share a little bit of your story, and they're being incredibly brave in doing this because this is really hard to do. Is what brought you to the streets? What are your circumstances? And this can be popcorn style. It doesn't have to be in a row.
I worked for Amazon in Nashville, and when they opened a new place here in town, they needed a delivery center as well, so they asked me if I'd transfer. I rented a place from a guy. I talked to him on the phone, everything, got here, met him, gave him my money. A couple of weeks later, somebody came with a title to the house, said, "We don't want to rent this house anymore. We just bought it. You have 30 days to get out," and I couldn't find the guy that I originally paid, and so I was kind of like scammed out of the house, and yeah, that's how I ended up there.
Yeah.
My name's Rod. I'm an alcoholic, have been for years, and I've known Christy and everybody around here in Springfield for several years. Been living on the streets ever since my divorce was back in 2006, and I have recently went downhill for a lot of years, and they kept after me, and I finally broke down. July 11th, they found me, and I was there with a beer can beside me, and I finally said, "Hey, I've had enough." I went with Christy. She helped me clean up, and I've been with them ever since July 11th.
Yeah, hi, I'm Michael again, and other than a lot of bad choices that I made, I also had some health problems, which a lot of people, not everybody, a lot of people on the street have either a mental or physical disability or difficulty. For me, it was strokes, and after stroke number 3, I lost the use of my left hand, so I had lost my job. I didn't really lose my job. I couldn't do it anymore. I was working in an auto parts warehouse. You can't really do that one-handed. And so that's made it me, or that's led me to the streets mostly. Like I said, apart from the bad choices that I was making at the time.
My life in general got pretty chaotic. I lost my kids to the foster system. I was trying to do things by myself. I was a super high overachiever, and then all of a sudden I couldn't even tie my shoes. Between that, losing my kids to the foster care system, losing my mom and stepdad, they both passed away to cancer in a very short time, mental illness, and then bad decisions of my own, I ended up being an IV meth user. And that led me to lose everything, including myself.
So, Mandy, I'm going to pick on you a second, because I think, and this is kind of common for a lot of people that we see, our friends on the streets, is addiction.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that a lot of people don't know about being unsheltered is how hard it is to get clean.
Yes.
On the streets. So, talk to us a little bit about what those barriers look like to trying to access detox, recovery homes, that kind of stuff.
Well, first of all, a lot of the recovery houses, even though they may have wonderful programs, most of them require money. Mm-hmm. I don't have money. As far as being out on the street and being able to get clean, there are so many reasons that's just about impossible. First of all, when you're an IV drug user, you have about a 92% relapse rate if your life is going well otherwise. Mm-hmm. So when it's not going well, you really don't stand a chance. There were a lot of times where I stayed up longer than I was comfortable with, and it got higher than I wanted to because I didn't have a safe place to go. Yeah. Because I needed to stay warm. Mm-hmm. And so, accessing other types of help is really difficult too. Mm-hmm. How do you get back and forth even just to doctor's offices? How do you apply for Medicaid when you don't have a mailing address? Mm-hmm. those things are things that people don't think about. And unfortunately, the trifecta is mental illness, addiction, and homelessness. They often go hand in hand in hand. There's really not any separation of the three once you've really been out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. You've come a long way.
Thank you.
I'm TJ again, and for me, because I'm a multiple time felon, and I came out of Kramer into a sober living house, they wanted me to get a job, and when I did, the boss asked me if I wanted to move out, get more hours, and I said yeah. And he refused to pay me after that, so I lost a motel I moved into and went out on the street, me and her both, and was out there about 7 months, and it was getting hard to handle, and it was getting to where, you know, somebody had to stay up, watch our stuff, protect us, so it became a necessity to go back in the cycle of drugs. And I'm an IV user, so it was pretty rough. And then after last winter, when Bob and Christy and them wanted to start the transitional house, I'd made a choice to get clean and sober, and it's been a great thing for me because now I am the transitional house night manager. I'm completing all my programs. I'm able to get the health care I need, and I'm just completing everything.
Yeah, and I'm gonna obviously jump to Loretta next because y'all are a couple, and that's has a nuance when it comes to couples on the streets and different ways that you have to make really hard decisions. So, Loretta, share us with a little about your story.
Well, I'm Loretta, of course. If we're talking about Springfield homeless, like he said, it was because we lost everything to that use. But I was homeless before I came to Springfield. I was off and on for, 6 years ago, almost 7. We lost his dad to a heart attack. Then he went to prison. I lost my home. So it's been really rough for me until now. So I'm in a place of my own, and I'm not doing too bad, but it's okay, but it's not the good situation to be in.
Yeah.
I took the home because it was quick and fast for me and Brownie to get into because we couldn't live on the street no longer. It was getting way too cold for either one of us to be out here.
Brownie's your little fur baby.
Yes, Brownie's my fur baby, of course.
And take a second with us, Loretta, to talk about, because I think they have a lot of, you're housed now, which is awesome.
Yes.
And there's also a big adjustment in that when it comes from being on the streets to being in shelter, having some guilt of leaving friends behind, of like some adjustments to what that, going from the woods to the bed is
the adjustment to that was real. It is still hard for me to adjust to because I got so used to the noise and being out with my friends, and of course my fiance was there with me at the time, and now I got to get used and adjusted to all that noise being gone because I've got a house. Well, it's an apartment actually, and it just seems weird not having it for so long, and then being by myself is really
really
I think scary.
The support piece when it comes to that like housing first model that we hear a lot about is like, without that level of support, whenever you are housed, it can kind of spiral quickly. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it does. I went through one door to did my assessment. That's part of the reasons why I got the housing assessment and got the voucher.
Yep.
And it only took me 90 days after I did my first assessment with them. And it took me a little over 3 weeks out on the street still after I got the assessment and approved. And then that's when I called around and looked for a house, and I was in within 3 weeks.
Yeah. So, I was going to say.
Speaking on the being recently housed stuff, and everything.
Yeah.
Loretta's situation is way atypical. Usually the wait list is 3-4 years,
Absolutely.
not 90 days.
Absolutely.
But no, I mean, as far as the guilt goes and everything, I've maintained a support system because y'all were there, that I could keep coming, I could keep doing what I do, volunteering and whatever. A lot of these people, when they get housed, there's nothing. They're in a house. All right, job done, and then they fall back, because they don't have the mental health or the friendship or the loneliness, everything all creeps in. So that's all I just wanted to add.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's absolutely right. I'm gonna jump to Kim. Just look at me. So talk to us a little bit about what brought you to the streets.
I was married for 20 years, and I left that marriage, and I knew I was walking out into homelessness, but I had no idea how vicious it was. It's hard to be on the street, being a single girl. So,
Yeah. Say a little bit more about that.
well, the first 90 days was fun. It was summertime. I slept at Convoy of Hope. Then for the last 2 years, I've lived in a tent on the streets.
Yeah. Yeah. Scary. Brandon, or you got?
I know for me, biggest thing was being around people day in, day out that drank beer, because that's what I did. And when we couldn't find anything to get a beer, we'd always fly a sign. That's what the homeless people do. You see them on the street corners everywhere, all over Springfield. And I think that was a big turn for me, was getting away from the same people I was dealing with or associating with during the day, during the week, the whole time. And I think once, and I still got friends out there, and I keep asking other friends that are around them how they're doing, and they're still out there doing the same thing that they were doing when I said, hey, I've had enough, I'm done. And I left, and I come to Christy and Rue, and they've helped me out. I've had to go through some medical issues, and they make sure that I've been to my appointments and everything. I'm a double amputee, I have no toes. So it's hard for me to walk. If you see me limping, that's why. But yeah, a lot of my issues were being around the same thing day in, day out. And once I got away from that, being with the outreach program, it's been pretty much clean sailing.
Yeah. So I'm gonna jump to you, Brandon, and let you share, since Brandon has recently joined our program and is doing amazing. So share with us a little about your experience.
So I had a pretty good childhood, but my problem was that my parents would pretty much give me everything I wanted, and I got tired of getting everything I wanted, and I never got in trouble. So I was looking for trouble to see what that felt like. My dad was an alcoholic, pretty bad. Actually, I used to pick him up from bars and stuff, and I just kind of fell down in that pit right there. My mom was never around, so I started cooking meth and selling meth and taking care of my sister and everything like that. And I figured drinking was a lot easier to numb the pain, because I was making excuses. Bunch of bad relationships, and I picked those on purpose because that's kind of what I was used to when I was growing up. So I was a product of my environment. It's just it was easier to get drunk and hide my feelings. So that's just kind of what I ran to, and I kept going in and out of jail, and I was just so used to it that was my life until I met this program, and I had no. I didn't even know where I was going. I had a trespassing ticket, and I showed up to this program, and thank God I did, honestly, because I'm telling you right now, I was giving up on programs. I was giving up on places because everyone's like, hey, come here, it's cool, and then, oh yeah, well, you're not approved, or, there's always excuses. I never got turned away. And this is the first time that I actually had somebody, people having my back. When you start to do good and people are noticing it, you want to do better. And that's one thing that I was always looking for when I was a kid. When I did good, nobody paid attention. When I did bad, they remembered. They remembered everything. So that's why I was really good at being bad. But then now it just feels good. I pulled my head out, and doing amazing things. And being sober is great. And I couldn't ask for a better program, better people. And now I'm happy.
Yeah. No, I think I'm going to transition us a little bit because I think you've all kind of named some of the challenges of being on the street, some of the things that were really beneficial, which like I hear across the board, which is support system. But I want you to talk a little bit about what was one of the hardest things on the streets to survive. Like, what is one of those pieces of being unsheltered that make it really difficult to survive?
Keeping warm in the wintertime. I had a job. There was just no affordable housing, that I could get into after I had already given this guy most of my money,
Mm-hmm.
And so, walking to work in steel-toed boots because that's what you have to do, and then find out you have frostbite and becoming, an amputee as well. That was one of the hardest things, was just finding, I don't know if you want to call them creature comforts or whatever, but, just the warmth or a place to get cool in the summertime or, whatever it was,
Yeah.
Sometimes one of the hardest things was just finding water to drink, because you can't go into a gas station with your backpack, and slurp up their water out of the sink, to get,
Yeah. Well, and for you, warmth caused you to lose something.
Right,
So I want
right.
you to talk a little bit about, because I know that's something that
I
love sharing about.
I had a job, and my job was in the night, and there wasn't a bus that ran out to the industrial park. I was at the end of Kearney, so I was walking every night 5.5 miles there, and then I was walking 5.5 miles back. And this was January, and it was 10 degrees outside, and the steel in there. I grew up in Houston, Texas. From there, it was to Nashville, and from Nashville to here, and well, they didn't have winters like this cold. And so I wasn't even thinking about the steel in there, sapping the heat out of my feet. I just thought it was like playing in the snow. Your feet would hurt, and then same as your hands did if you played in it, but it would get better, And so that's how I ended up, like this.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest challenges for me, and probably all women can attest to this, but are predators. And I mean predators of all kinds, whether it's sexual predators or people who just want the few things that you do have, other folks who are on the street, or people who want to shame you. There's a lot of, well, here's help, but you're going to listen to my spiel first. And let me tell you why you're not a great person. Let me tell you why you're messing up. Let me tell you how you need to improve yourself. But here's a sandwich. Sexual predators, that is something that as women go through on a daily basis on the streets. There's no shortage of people who want to let you stay the night. None at all. But there's a big price to be paid. So that, to me, just predatory behavior of people in general, when they see that a woman is at the mercy of the world, was the hardest thing overall.
Yeah, which creates a lot of compound trauma, which
Yes.
doesn't help the already trauma that is being happening in Florida.
Last year when it got real cold for the first couple months, me and Brownie stayed in our tent by ourselves in the woods behind McDonald's. We wouldn't get out to go nowhere. We couldn't go out. I couldn't take her nowhere because I couldn't get her on the bus because she wasn't serviced, or I didn't have a ride and I couldn't call nobody. I didn't have a phone. So that was the hardest, was us to stay warm in our tent without freezing to death. When they kicked us out last winter, because they were bulldozing things down, that I reached out to Christy. I had a service and I was able to get to a phone that year, that month, and told her, I was like, I need your help. They're bulldozing everything down here and we've got no place to go. I can't get her on the bus. She's like, I'll be there in less than 30 minutes, and she was there. So she rescued me and Brownie out of the woods last winter.
And for me, the toughest thing was protecting her and our dog and our belongings. Being in that type of situation, you don't trust people very easy. To be able to go to sleep, get a good night's rest, stay sober long enough to go to your PO, things like that, it was very hard to do. And that feeling, that shame and embarrassment of not being able to take care of them can dig you deeper into the addiction. It makes it 10 times harder. But there is ways out of it. There is good support systems. The Connecting Grounds is one of the major ones. My ICTS program is major. And now I don't have to worry. She's not on the street. My dog ain't on the street. I'm not on the street.
And I wanted to add one more thing to it. We had one good friend out there that did rescue us. His name was Mike. He works now at Price Cutters. If it wasn't for him, we would have several trespassing tickets throughout the year we were here out on the street because he had a place, a little slot. He had a couple openings that he didn't trust very many people, just like we didn't know anybody. And we met him through the teardrop trailers. And them were our lifesaver too several times when they were free or we didn't have money. Bronte let us come in a lot of times because he really cared about some of us. There wasn't many, but there was, like the bag issue thing, when it was a no bag policy going in there, he let us come in there several times with the bags because he trusted me and TJ because we'd been going through out there for almost a year.
Well,
or
that
longer.
kind of brings me to one of the things like that I hear a lot from people, our friends on the streets, where it's like baggage and things that you're carrying make it really difficult to survive.
Yes.
Whenever you're having to carry this, literally your home with you everywhere.
Yeah.
So I want to hear from Rodney, Michael, Kim, and Brandon about like what is one of the things that makes it really difficult to survive on the streets.
Well, you just mentioned carrying everything you own, and that can be tough. I had the misfortune of spending a few weeks where I was falling down a lot, and I broke all the ribs on my left side, hurt my shoulder, and cracked my head open twice. And trying to carry all your belongings with broken ribs is no picnic. Just getting across a parking lot or down the sidewalk, trying to carry everything is hard enough. And you can't leave your belongings anywhere because even if they're right next to you, somebody can walk off with them. That's happened to me before. You try to keep a hold of your things, but as soon as you turn your back or close your eyes for a minute, somebody's going to swoop in and take it. So even though it hurt physically to carry all of my stuff, I didn't have a choice. So you just grit your teeth and, keep trudging along and wind up in the hospital. That was mine, anyway.
Well, you said that right, Mike. It's hard to, for me, I tried to downsize everything I had to like one backpack, maybe two, and that was it. I've seen guys out there now, and still do, pushing around shopping carts that they've got from Price Cutters or Walmart or whatever, and I mean, they're just packed full of stuff, and I'm thinking, I'm going, why would somebody want to be pushing that, for a mile or two, and try to keep everything together? Because like Mike said, I've been in places where, of course, like I said, I drank a lot of beer, and I'd pass out, and I'd have, a backpack or two to have, my wallets and make a little bit of money or whatever, and a sleeping bag, and wake up, 2-3 hours later, and it's gone. The homeless out there is stealing from the homeless. So you got to watch your friends that you think are your friends sometimes will bite you.
So because I think a lot of times, especially for experience of just being housed and not knowing what it's like being unsheltered, into a bag is difficult. So kind of give an idea of like what would be a realistic bag size to walk down the streets to put all your stick size.
A realistic size? Well, like I said, I spent a lot of times going to the VA and going up there drinking coffee every morning when they opened for several years. And there was always, somebody coming in with and I've seen them where they've tied two shopping carts together, and either pulling it or they've got a partner with them, just pushing on the other end, and I mean, it's pretty heavy, and they usually don't go too far, and, they're taking a break.
What about you, Mandy?
I think it really depends on what you consider necessary and whether you choose to have a tent or not. There's two sides of the fence in the homeless community. Do you leave all your things in one spot and take the risk of them probably being gone or vandalized or something else at some point in time? Or do you take everything that's important and that's necessary with you on your back? So those are kind of the two different schools. I was the one to take everything with me.
Yeah.
Now, if you're taking everything with you, in my experience, you're going to need a tarp. You're going to need a blanket. You're gonna need your food. You're going to need a change of clothes, at least one. You're gonna need some hygiene items. You're talking about a 50-pound bag of gear by the time this is said and done. And that's no joke. So imagine carrying 50 pounds of absolutely vital, necessary things with you everywhere you go.
I think a realistic size that you need to carry is one of those big green Army duffel bags, because that's what you need to carry everything that you're going to need. Realistically, you know, 1 or 2 backpacks, you know. And she was talking about the 50 pounds on their back. Most of our unsheltered population, or us, you know, when we had to go somewhere, it wasn't just 2 blocks. It was 4 or 5 miles, you know, that we had to carry this stuff. And it was even worse when it rained, and now we had to carry wet stuff. You know, so, I mean.
Yep. And a lot of times if you have too much stuff, you can't get on the bus.
Right.
Or if it rained or snowed, you have to worry about getting all that gear on, and then you have to worry about taking it all off because you're in a warm place, because you burn up. So you just might as well train you as you're being in the Army.
Yeah.
We all might as well just go join it, because that's where we gotta live out here.
Right.
Because of the survival. It's really hard
Right.
for homeless. I see it now, even though I'm in a place, and I just pray for those people out there, because I still got friends out here that are still homeless.
Right.
So.
The Army won't
So-
take homeless, drug addict, felons. You know that, right?
So Kim and Brandon, talk to me about what are some things that make it difficult to survive unsheltered on the streets of Springfield.
Well, are we talking about still things that are making it hard, or like what kind of bag I think is important?
Still things that make it hard. Thank you for clarifying.
I just say a good backpack. I mean, you carry, and it's been 3 years, I had my stuff stole 6 times from me, and that's when I carried it with me. Now, when I started living in the tent, I just figured, well, there's already a chance it's gonna get stolen, so I might as well just leave it here and put my tent like out on H Highway and just walk back and forth every day.
Yeah.
Because then I was safe out there, nobody was with me, I camp alone, and it was on H Highway,
Yeah.
so I just walked to get to it.
Yeah. Do you feel like one of the things that makes it difficult to survive is the community piece of it, and who you
Yes.
know, and
Trust.
yeah,
I mean, I'm in this program now and I have these friends, but on the streets, you don't have friends. You cannot trust anybody.
yeah, yeah. Brandon, what makes it hard to survive on the streets of Springfield?
Well, it could be hard, and mine wasn't extremely hard because everything was handed to me, which made it extremely hard. I guess it was hard that way, because when I needed something to drink, like I would go to my mom and she would keep me warm, but I couldn't stay there. You know, so I mean, it was hard for me to stay sober, because I wanted to be drunk and warm and numb, because then if I was walking somewhere, if it rained or something, it didn't really bother me, or where I slept, it didn't bother me, because if I got arrested, I'll be out the next morning. You know, it's very difficult, and I always packed light. I normally just carry my son's picture and just a couple blankets and stuff like that, because like I don't like carrying stuff around, and it's gonna get stolen anyway. So normally my backpack was full of liquor and a blanket and my kids' pictures.
Yeah.
So I mean,
So I'm gonna use your story a little, Brandon, to kind of transition us, because one of the things I think is a misconception is that it's really easy to find housing, and there's not a lot of barriers to housing. And I think we all know that, everyone on this panel knows that that's not true. So what are some things for you that make it a difficult to find barrier for permanent housing?
I'm a felon.
Yeah.
And a lot of places when I was calling around, I didn't have a problem getting a job, because like I'll go get a job. But then when I was calling around for places renting, they're not felon friendly. Or, you know, you got to do a background check. And if you got an eviction or something, there's so many hurdles and stuff to jump over that it makes it almost impossible. That's why there's so many homeless. That's why they just give up. Because when they go to a program and they get turned away, they're like, you know what, there's no point. But I wish there was more programs like this. I mean, because I don't see a lot of people getting turned away. We always try to help. And if more people was like us, more programs were like us, there would be less people on the streets.
I think that one of the things I also hear a lot is that the housing wait list
That's ridiculous, too.
is about 2 years out to get a housing voucher. So that also creates it even more difficult, and once you get one, it can be hard to find a place that accepts it. So
I want to add to that. Yes, it is hard to find. I got the voucher, of course, and there I had like three pages I had to call to check to see about the housing voucher. All of them would not take the housing voucher. There was maybe 3 of them out of that whole list that took the housing voucher. That's what took me the longest, I think, to getting in. I think if they would have took the housing voucher and accept pets, that was another thing I had issue with, was Brownie, was a pet thing. Pet was, if she ain't registered or anything like that, you're not getting in now. Because my place I'm staying at now, I got lucky and got in there with Brownie. They're telling everybody, if you got a pet, they got to be serviced now, which that's not right. It's not the pet's fault. You know, we can't afford them, but we ain't going to give them up. I know I wouldn't.
no, that would become your baby on the streets.
I'll add to that too, as far as the difficulty in housing. So believe it or not, I've got quite a bit of college under my belt. So even we end up on the streets, okay? So I did a study and for one of my papers, for one of my classes. It was one of my favorite humanities class, and it was on socioeconomic status. And so one of the things that I learned, and this is a nationwide statistic, is if you work it and you do everything you can, you find every spot you fit in, from the time you become homeless, it's going to take you an average of 2 years to be back on your feet again and to be self-sufficient. And in Springfield, that's a bare minimum, like Ruth said, absolute bare minimum. Now, what failed to be mentioned here is if you are signing up for housing and you're trying to be in that program, let's say you lose your phone, you don't have that phone number anymore. Well, they can't get a hold of you, you're off the list, next. And then it's all over again on the process.
Absolutely.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, you know, there's only one place in town that does your housing assessment, and that housing assessment has to be updated every 90 days. Doesn't matter if you're on the list for 2 years and like next in line, if you miss that 90 days, oh well, you know, something happens, you know, you're in the hospital, you know, just can't make it, you know, then
You
they
lose your
start you all
phone,
over.
which
Yep.
is the place that
Yep.
normally you get contacted, which a lot of people phone rotating numbers quickly.
So I mean, if you just miss that, they'll kick you right off the list. Yeah.
Absolutely. Michael and Rodney, talk to me a little bit about what barriers there are to accessing housing in Springfield.
Well, actually, I went through one door and I talked to a lady there. Heather Voiles, I believe was her name. She was over the housing there at one door. And this was a couple years ago, and they ended up, and they got me into Francisco Villa. They had actually a 2-year lease for Francisco Villa, and I was there for 1 year. And I said, no, I can't do this no more. So I ended up leaving last May, and then in July is when.
Why can't you do this anymore?
What?
Why couldn't you do this anymore? Talk to me about that. Just like in the context of that lack of support system when it comes to being housed.
Being housed?
Yeah.
I'm not following.
It's okay. I think it's difficult whenever you get, kind of going back to our original first conversation, when you get housed and not having that that support system to help you regulate and community piece makes it difficult, where it's hard to stay in the place where you have access.
Yeah, it was real hard to stay in the place. I went through, from the time that I started in Francisco Villa, I went through 3 different managers, had changed hands back and forth, and it seemed like every manager had something different that they wanted to do, and it got to where it was just, I couldn't take it no more. I finally said, hey, you know, I went back out on the streets, started drinking again, and it's hard. It's hard.
Michael, talk to me a little bit about barriers to housing in Springfield.
For me, of course, the first barrier is money. Everybody wants money, even if it's supposed to be a program to help people that are homeless. If you don't have the money to pay for the program, they're not letting you in. Other than that is, apparently I don't qualify or meet eligibility requirements for a lot of these different programs and housing options that are out there. I found a caseworker for myself specifically to help me find housing, And at every turn, he pushed back against, oh, well, you don't qualify for that. I came up with 6 different options that I gave to him for myself, and still nothing until this program reached out and got me. But otherwise, I mean, just trying to find a program that'll take you without money. Maybe if you were getting a check, they might take you because they know you can pay because you're getting a disability check or whatever it is. But yeah, for me, it has mostly just come down to money all this time. And I can't work, so I don't have any money.
Well, that includes first month rent, application fees, the things that you don't think about whenever, yep. Yep, yeah.
And your guy. And our guy.
Kim. And can you share, tell us about some barriers to accessing housing in Springfield?
Well, I've had 2 housing assessments, and I had the first one within the first year, but then I lost my phone and went without a phone for, months and months and months. So I just had my second one, so we'll see how long this waiting list is.
And how is it, this is going to be a rhetorical question, is it easy to access housing whenever you have an eviction on your record?
I don't have an eviction on my record, so I don't know about that.
Yeah, but
I have trespassing tickets, so they say that affects it, so I'll cross that bridge when it comes.
On your record, yes, it is very hard to rent a place with that. I've got a best friend that was staying where I was living, and he says it's very, very hard to get rental assistance or any kind of help because you got that on your record. And that's just as bad as being as a felon, I would think. I don't know, I've never had anything like that on my record, but still, I see it every day, even though I'm still in a housing of my own. And it's just really weird because I've got to adjust to all that still. And I'm still adjusting slowly, but I'm getting there.
Absolutely.
So with all the friends and family I have out here, even though I don't have no family originally that lives in Springfield besides my niece, I don't associate with her because we have family issues, but that's another day or dollar. But I call my family is my street people that I hung out and stayed with. Like there's maybe 10 of them that watched our backs. We watched their stuff. They watched our stuff.
Right.
Not so much, but we watched more of their stuff than anything.
Right.
When they wanted to go somewhere. And the hardest for me was if I wanted to take Brownie, the 2-3 weeks I was out here still before I got into housing, I couldn't take her in the store.
right.
I had to tie her up. And then you got these people out here on the street looking at her like, is she gonna bite me or are we gonna have issues with
Right.
this dog? Because I had one man threaten me. She bites me, I'm putting her down. I said, she's not vicious.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get her on the bus or get her in the store.
Yeah.
So
So TJ, I was going to say, talk to me a little bit about barriers to housing.
Oh, well, like you've heard the felon thing. Well, if you're walking paper, if you're on probation, a lot of places require you to be done with that for 5 years before you're able to get into housing. So if you're actively on probation like me, it's an absolute no. So
And
it's
working
very,
it well,
very
too.
difficult. Yeah.
Like, even whenever you are doing really well with your probation, that can still be difficult to find a place
Yeah,
that accepts you.
absolutely. I mean, you could be doing everything they want you to do, and if you're still on paper, they're not going to let you in. They want you off of it for 5 years minimum before they let you in.
Yeah, so we've kind of named a lot of the barriers to accessing housing and stability and support. Talk to me about what is something you think, what is a resource you think Springfield needs more of, or something that you would like them to know?
Affordable housing or understanding landlords that will work with you on a deposit. That's,
And it can also not only just be with barriers to housing, but also just resources for people on the streets too.
I think, yeah, just in general, there need to be more programs out there that cater to people and their actual real needs. A lot of programs want to tell you what they think that you need, and it's absolutely incorrect. It doesn't end up being helpful. So again, like I was talking about before, where you've got that trifecta of the addiction, mental illness, homelessness, all of those things, just like you need mind, body, spirit, all of those things need to be addressed at the same time. And if there are really no programs out there other than the connecting grounds that I found that will help you along the way as a whole person.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to get rid of the business of addiction, where stars can go and check themselves into a rehab facility anytime they want to, but people out here who are really tired of it, who really need the help, cannot get anything.
So affordable recovery places.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree with Chris on that one, because there is a lot of people that want help for the addiction or the drinking or whatever they've got problems with. They can't get it because there's other people out there taking advantage of everybody else's resources that need the help and want the help. They can't get it because somebody else is doing it and taking their spot, that just gonna go right back out there and doing the same thing tomorrow. And I'm one of them trying to become a drug recovery.
Yeah.
It is hard.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
slipped several times, but I've got people now here that's going to help me get back into to where I need to be and where I want to be, and that's the help I need. And I need the help, y'all. And it's sad because there's so many people out there that need help with that, and other landlords helping to take over the vouchers. There's a lot of landlords out here that
more
won't
landlords willing
accept
to
the
accept
vouchers
yeah.
because that's a third-party check. You're getting your rent no matter what, y'all.
Right.
So.
Michael, tell me a little bit about what is some resources that you think or something that you would...
One thing that we could definitely use in this city is more beds during the winter. It is cold out there when you have to be out there 24 hours a day, and we've got no places for people to go overnight to stay warm. That is a huge challenge for most people that live on the street. Stay warm, dry for me was always the worst. I hated the rain. But yeah, we can use the resources that we have, I know are limited, but it'd be nice if some of them was put towards more beds for people to have not just a warm place to sleep, but a safe place to sleep at night during the winter.
So when do cold weather shelters open in the wintertime? What is the conditions have to be for shelters to be open? For people that...
Only from November to March, and it has to be 32 degrees or below for 4 consecutive hours overnight. So if it's 33 and the wind's blowing 20 miles an hour, good luck. I hope the tree branch doesn't fall on you while you're sleeping in the park. If you can find a place to sleep, you know, because you're not supposed to be sleeping outside anymore. So.
Yeah, and our shelter beds are a lot smaller than the number of people that are on the streets. More beds is a great one.
I think if more churches open their doors, actually, instead of trying to be a business, then there would be less people on the street. Because, like I'm telling you right now, the only program and the only church program and the only thing that I've ever wanted anything to do with is this one. Because, like, normally if you go to church, they turn you away. You're going to make a mess. You're going to do this, and one bad apple ruins it for everybody. So I honestly think with all the churches on every street corner here, if they open the doors and actually there wouldn't be anybody on the streets.
I will snap to that one.
Yeah.
Rodney.
What Chris and what Brandon was saying, what they were saying about like the housing, I think Chris kind of hit it on the head, where the people that have addictions that they can't kick are going to these places. Like I said, One Door, I know several people have went up there and have gotten houses, and I used to walk by a house that somebody had got from, I don't know if it was One Door or where it was at, but I used to walk by from Francisco Villa going to the VA. I'd walk by this house, and it's a 2-story house, but there'd be like 8 to 10 people out on the front porch drinking, doing dope, smoking weed, doing all kinds of stuff. That's the kind of stuff why people don't want to rent, because if you go up to somebody and you're all, high or drunk or whatever, and you're trying to ask for a place to rent, and they're looking at you going, nah, you're not gonna rent my place. So that pretty much shuts everybody down, so.
Which if there was more recovery places, I
Right.
would say that would help people get to a place where there is sobriety.
Right.
It would probably be easier to access
Oh,
those
yeah,
shelters.
oh, yeah, it'd be a lot easier.
Yeah.
But they got,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
People that are still out here. I know Brentwood was one of the churches that helped the homeless. VA does during the day, certain hours, but you're only allowed to take your animals too. If you ain't, so there's a lot of people that's still out here that can't take an animal in that church. Grace is one of them that helped. Not just them, but there's several businesses that could help too. Hot hands are really a big issue around here, y'all. Them save my toes and my hands for a long winter, cold nights. And my dog, of course, she was my heater.
Absolutely.
what you saying, the animal's not going to, like Grace, that I think brings up kind of a liability issue for the church. If they do let an animal in there, say like at nighttime when they're feeding, if that animal happens to bite somebody in the church, then the church could be liable for,
Which I would say.
unless it's a service dog or
Yeah,
something like
I would
that.
say crates would be the solution to that. Because I think especially for pets on the streets, and just people who are concerned about the liability pieces of shelter, I would rather brainstorm a solution to those liabilities than say no up front. And crates. So, TJ, talk to us a little bit about what resources you'd like to see more of.
Definitely more recovery places that are affordable. That's a big one. More places like our program that are individualized. Not everybody's circumstances are the same. Not everybody's story is the same. Whether 5 people are dope addicts using needles, their circumstances can be way different person to person to person. And for so many years, it's been stereotyped. It don't matter whether it's alcohol, drugs, what. It's stereotyped. It's an addict. That's plain and simple. They don't think about what's the underlying issue to this person. How can we help them?
What do they need?
What do they need? What is their absolute need? Is it mental health? I had bad depression and anxiety issues. I'm now taking medication for it. I'm stable. I don't have any want or need to go backwards at all.
Yeah. Kim.
I agree, with what Brandon said. We have a church on every corner. And I'm not saying all these churches are bad or whatever. I'm not saying anything like that. But for the number of unsheltered that we have, that we shouldn't have any unsheltered, especially in the winter, because in the summer when you live in a tent, you are camping. But in the winter, you're surviving, and it's totally different.
Absolutely. So I'm going to give us an opportunity for people from the crowd to ask questions because y'all have done an amazing job. So we're going to give a round of applause to y'all. I am incredibly proud of you and very honored to work with each of you.
Thank you for hearing our stories, though. That means
Thank you
a
very
lot
much.
to all of us.
Yeah. We love y'all. So I'm going to do 3 or 4 questions from y'all on what would you like to ask them, since we have Cindy.
Yes.
Oh,
And
yes.
you
So
hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah, Cindy asked, for the people online, Cindy asked, what are the barriers to accessing healthcare for people on the streets?
Starting just from the basic, how do you get to and from appointments? How do you call to make them, confirm them, all the way to picking up your prescription. Hopefully you don't have a copay. Hopefully you've been one of the lucky ones who got your Medicaid or whatever it is through. Even with that, how do you keep your medication? Because we already talked about how we lose things very regularly. So when you're in a half a month through your psychiatric medication that should not be stopped immediately, and you lose your bag, it's stolen, or your medication gets wet, God forbid, you're in big trouble. So all of those things are huge barriers to accessing healthcare. And beyond that, I think there's a lot of the stereotype that if we just, well, you're an addict, you're on the street, and this is what your issue is. And not looking beyond that to see maybe there's underlying issues, maybe there's some depression. I was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. I had no idea I had it until I was on the streets. And it took a doctor really getting in depth with me just to, pick yourself up, come on. So there are a lot of issues, there are a lot of barriers.
Absolutely.
Trying to figure out which form to fill out where do I need to be, where does this one need to be turned in, what do I have to do next, because it's not explained. They just take it and say somebody will be in touch. Other than that, one of the biggest barriers to getting medical care is having to figure out what you're going to eat that day, where you're going to eat, where you're going to stay dry, where you're going to stay warm, so that becomes just a way higher priority than actually trying to get your medical care, I think. So.
Or if you're anything like me, just put it off on hold until you get into a place. I've got physical and a lot of mental problems, but I haven't dealt with them until now. I choose to do it that way because I didn't want to keep track of my medication. It was bad enough to keep track of everything else I had.
Rodney, I want you to.
I know for me, as far as the medical part of it, after I got my right toes amputated off, I didn't have Medicare, I didn't have Medicaid. I'm too young to have Medicare, but I tried to get Medicaid and didn't get it. And the doctors down there at Mercy told me that I should go to MSU Care. And MSU Care supplied me with the medications that I needed to take care of,
And MSU Care.
Yeah, take care of me while, my foot and everything.
Accepts people with
So I was getting refills, from them, didn't have to pay nothing. And then once I went and got Medicaid, I was in the process of trying to refill some prescriptions at MSU Care, and the lady behind the desk said, well, Rodney, we can't help you no more. And I said, what's that? And she says, well, you've got Medicaid. I said, what? And Linda Hammer was with me from one door. She was there, and she went ecstatic. She was, Rod, you got Medicaid. So from then on, I've had Medicaid. I didn't have to worry about going to MSU Care. But they do give you prescriptions for, helping people out that don't have medical assistance. So that's a blessing.
Not a lot of people know about MSU Care.
No, yeah, they don't.
I was going to say that the more programs that'd be another resource I'd throw out there is more programs that help people that don't have insurance or don't qualify for insurance. I'm going to do, who else has questions? Renee. That's a great question. So for people online, the question was, what can we do as a community to help our friends who are on the streets?
Just hear us, listen to us. That's the biggest thing that you can do, is have understanding on what it really means to be homeless, what it really means to suffer. I never thought I would be one of those people, and here I sit, having been one of us. And so the biggest thing that you can do is just hear somebody's story.
Don't judge on sight. Yes, there are a few bad, unsheltered people out there, but not all of us. If you just take the time, just to sit down and have a conversation with somebody one time, or just ask, sometimes it's not the handouts or the gifts, it's the kind words that keep us going through the day, like maybe this isn't going to be as horrible as I thought it was going to be. So.
Or if you see somebody sitting on the side of the road, and you just ask them, hey, you need something to eat? Would you like something hot to drink or cold or whatever? And there are a lot of them that will say, yeah, I did.
TJ.
I think, like I said, it's individualized. If you stop and ask a person how their day's going, say hi to them. How are you doing? Are you feeling okay? anything, it can make their day 100% better than what it was.
Brandon?
I think honestly, just this is me now in my past. Just that's not who I am now. Just because it's like I got tattoos, or a lot of people, they look at that like he's a bad guy. He's got all this stuff, or there's a lot of, he's tatted up his body or something like that, or he's an alcoholic, and they judge him, oh, he's drunk, I don't need to help him. Well, maybe if you talk to him, then he would stop drinking. They need a friend. They need somebody in their life, because 99% of the time, the reason that they're drinking and they're doing stuff is because they don't think they have anybody. And everybody's better than them. And that's not the case. Everybody's equal. I mean, their story is what defines them, but like me, like I was an alcoholic, I was bad, like all that stuff, but I changed. And so can they.
Yeah, awesome. Another question. Yes. Go for it. Hit us with them.
Well, mine was, I moved around a lot,
So for
or
the
I
peop-
would go sit underneath a tree.
Just to repeat for the people online, you're good, Loretta, you're doing great. One of our friends asked, what do you do in a 24-hour span to stay warm, to eat, to just survive on the streets of Springfield? So go ahead, Loretta.
Well,
Sorry.
I usually, like if it's raining or something, we'd usually go sit underneath the bridge or in the little, whatever you want to call those, little tunnel things that run underneath the streets. Some of them did flood, yes, don't get me wrong, some didn't. And then if it was cold, me and Brownie always walked just to stay warm. And then if the sun was shining, we'd just sit out in the park. And now if we need something to eat, we'd go to the connecting grounds. I'd walk up there and get something to eat, to drink, or whatever I needed, because it was close to me, because I was on the west side, and I always stayed on the west side more than I did anything. I never went nowhere until I got in my housing.
Yeah.
Kind of an average day for me was wake up from wherever I was able to go to sleep from the night before, walk down to the Veterans Coming Home Center, because it wasn't just for veterans, it's basically for homeless folks in the daytime. There I could eat breakfast. For lunchtime, I'd walk down the road, there's another place you can eat lunch. They fill you up pretty good. And then you go back to the VA for a little while, we call it the VA. They close down around 2:30 in the afternoon. So after that, you go to the library. The library doesn't really want you there for very long anyhow, so when they close down or when they decide they're gonna kick you out because you got too many bags, we're gonna go to the park for a little while. That's several blocks down the road. After the park, you're gonna go to where they serve dinner. Now, mind you, this is just in one day. This is just surviving. So you're gonna go to the place where you eat dinner, and then after dinner, you're gonna find the place where hopefully you can stay the night. That is usually your biggest struggle, is finding out where you can be. If you don't have a tent, if you don't have something set up, like I was, I like to call myself a nomad. I didn't sleep in one particular spot because it's very unsafe for several reasons. So that for me was an average day.
So how I stayed warm, and like I said, if it was raining or whatever like that, it was okay, because when I was drunk, I was warm. And that was how I stayed warm. And when I passed out, I didn't care where I lay down, and that it's walk around, try to find more things, just it was pretty much it, just drinking, and kept you warm, and you didn't care where you slept.
Yeah.
See, mine was a little different because I had a full-time job. My thing was I had to find a place to charge my phone that would let me sit long enough to actually get my phone charged so that I could accept the shifts for work, because I was on a flex schedule. And that, and then of course, I did chase, drugs, so I had the energy to go find a place to charge my phone, and because I had to carry all my stuff because I couldn't let it sit, and then I had to be awake that night. Wasn't any place I could lay down during the daytime, to actually sleep, since I worked at night. So, you know, that became the vicious cycle of gotta stay awake, gotta go to work, gotta stay awake, gotta go to work, you know, so. It's not glamorous, but that's the way I did it.
Yeah.
I know for me, kind of like what, follow up with Mandy, I'd get up in the morning and want that cup of coffee first before I get any beer. And I'd go to the VA and I'd stay there, and like Chris was saying, it's a place where you can charge your phones up, you know, anything that you need charged, you know, Bluetooth, whatever. And I charge my phone up, and they've also got computers there where I'd get on a computer, and I'm a weather person. I love to keep track of the weather, see what it's going to be doing at night, see what snow's coming in, if it's going to be raining or what. And I'd stay there and eat lunch, and then sometimes I go to Salvation Army and eat lunch because they serve lunch too. And then after the VA would close, I would know what the weather was going to be, and I would try to coordinate the rest of my day, trying to find a place. If it was going to be raining, I'd make sure I was within walking distance to some shelter so I could stay dry. If it was going to be snowing, you know, there again, you know, find some shelter that's going to keep me, you know, keep snow off of me. And if it was getting cold enough, and I knew, you know, judging off the computer, if it was getting cold enough, I'd know to head to Grace because they would be taking us out to a warming shelter. So that's pretty much how I spent my day.
Yeah. All right. I know you had more questions, so we have, I think, okay, I'll go over here to Sarah to answer a question, and then I'm going to jump back to you, and then I'll probably close out. Yeah. What are your passions? Are one of the things, was what Sarah asked for people online. Brandon,
What I like to do?
go for it.
What I like to do, I love to fish. I grew up fishing on the Missouri River up in northern Missouri, and I had a bass boat, ended up having to, I lost my bass boat, and right now I always think about trying to find some place to go fishing. I know they got the lake just south of here, but I've never been there, and I'd like to go. But fishing is my main pet peeve. Passion. Hey, thanks, Chris.
I know for me at least, just like self-care, having passion or being excited about anything or having leisure time was a thing that really I didn't get to think about for a long time. And so, like recently I've found being the advocate that I can, in the position that I can, I'm one step away from having been on the street, but I'm that one step that makes a huge, huge, huge difference in life or death, literally. Being with the Connecting Grounds has given me the opportunity to, in small ways, but big ways, give back to the people who are right now where I used to be. And so that, to me, it means a lot. Like I tear up constantly when I think about it. It's almost like survivor's guilt for the folks that are still out there and the people we left behind. And so a passion of mine is making sure that we don't forget. I don't forget where I come from. Don't forget there's still folks out there.
In my sobriety and being in the Connecting Grounds, I have found I am very passionate about helping people. One of the best things I do out of the day is plating up food for people. Handing out a plate of food, seeing them get a warm meal makes everything I've been through worth it in the end.
Down to even the coffee. I mean, when it's cold outside and they need, they're constantly making coffee. And like TJ said about the food, when you know they're hungry, they're talking about food coming out, and then we're like, it's coming. And I don't care if I feed somebody 100 times, you know, it's cool. The same person. But as long as I know when they leave, they got a full belly, because the night before they didn't eat, or the day after, a couple days they didn't eat, they come in there, they can always come there. I've been hungry, and then, like, a lot of times, like, when you, like drinking, you know what I'm saying? Like, you lose your appetite, but eventually, you do get hungry. And the thing about it is you can always come there and eat. And it always puts a smile on my face. Even when I go to work, now I got a job, and I'll be sitting at the house, and I have to come in, because if people are working there, then, if I'm sitting there, I feel like, I've got to come in, I got to help, because an extra hand in there is always, it's positive, it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing to see with,
Well, I don't know. My passion would be a little different because I'm in a home. So I don't know what you would mean by that, because would that mean being in a home or being out on the street? Because you could look at it both ways. But my passion is to still go volunteer, be able to volunteer my hours and my time with everybody, which I get to do.
oh, I think Chris is wanting.
Everybody stole my answer, so it's okay, but I have some others. One of the big things that helped me when I was out on the streets is music. So my passion is music, and living vicariously through people who make millions and millions of dollars, but only if they play on a losing team, obviously. So, you know, sports and music, you know. I know, and they need to paint that white again so I can do it again, but you know, that's just, you know.
I don't think we're gonna do that. Yes, and do you have one more question? Right over here.
I have panhandled because I've had to. There was times we needed money for necessities, and with, at the time, very few choices of where to go, I would get on a bus, leave her and Brownie sitting wherever we were staying at that day, and I would go panhandle for money that day. I might get $5, I might get $35, but it was something that I had to do. Of course, 90% of that was going to feed the habit, but it was just, it's embarrassing, it's shameful, a lot of that comes with it, and it's another thing that's stereotyped, but that's what I've had to do.
I panhandled once. I wasn't ashamed of it or anything. I feel sad for the people that's doing it because they got to do that, but that's a way of living for them. They're making their money to survive. Some of them don't get food stamps. Some of them don't get help out here for food and clothing or anything. So they got to panhandle to get that money to eat. But there's some of them that's still making bad choices with that money. But you can't just pick individuals, say, hey, that person's going to do that bad and this one's going to do good. No, you can't do that because you don't know until you've been in their shoes.
Absolutely.
I panhandled. I'm not proud of it, but I basically panhandled so I could get alcohol. But don't judge every person that's panhandling on that, because there's some you could just stop and offer them a meal or a bottle of water, and they'll be grateful for that.
Yeah, I also think some, especially on the west side, we have a lot of people use the panhandle money to go to the trailers at night, which is $10 a night, and that's a warm place to stay that night if you have $10. Yeah. All right, guys. So thank you all again. I am so deeply grateful for everything that y'all have done. Yeah, and thank y'all for coming out. I really appreciate it. This was lovely. I also we've heard a lot of things that are needed, what it's like. We have an opportunity for each and every one of y'all, including people online, to get involved and volunteer and donate. One of our biggest things that we're needing right now for donations is hot hands and thermal socks. We give out a Christmas present and gloves. We give out Christmas present each year to our friends, and thermal socks is what we're giving out this year. So we are needing donations for those. So we have donations bins in the back if you brought stuff tonight. If not, don't worry about it. You can bring donations by our outreach center whenever we're open. And then we also have sign-up sheets. Or the donation bin outside the outreach center. Yes, I forget that we have that now. That's exciting. Yes, blankets. Mike, am I forgetting anything? Hats, gloves, scarves. We do street outreach, which is one of the things that y'all can volunteer for. We also have Holly, who is our lovely family connection director, who this is, in addition to this, We also get to work with her program, who helps families who are in the foster care system do supervised visits. So that's a special time that they get to spend with their kiddos, and she has a lot of need for volunteers. So that's also an opportunity to connect with. So please take the time to sign up as y'all head out tonight, and thank you so much for being here. I appreciate y'all.